even if you've got the most plainest outfit on, a pair of shoes can transform, how you feel and how you look. And your feet never change size, so that's easy.
Hi, and welcome to Creative Crush, a podcast in which marketing's smartest minds step away from the brand talk to chat about a piece of culture they keep returning to. And today we are talking to Erin Johnson. Erin, hello, how are you?
How are you? I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Before we get into your Creative Crush, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Yep. My name's Erin Johnson, and I am CMO for a tour operator in the travel industry. My role is ultimately about understanding what may make people go somewhere, how we turn that desire into something tangible for them, how we build the brands that I look after, that people trust with most experience, the most important experiences in their lives. People love going on holiday. People work to go on holiday and have these amazing experiences. So on any given day, I'm looking at brand strategy, or I'm looking at creative work. I'm looking at customer experience, commercial performance, all of those good things that make up the marketing cycle.
Can you tell us what your Creative Crush is today? And for anyone who doesn't know, just a line or two about it.
Okay, so my Creative Crush today is a film, and it's probably an unexpected film that people might think, oh, why is that a Creative Crush for you? But it's The Devil Wears Prada. And really what the film represents to me as a marketer is how transformative fashion can be.
You have no style or sense of fashion.
I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question. There's some reason that my coffee isn't here. Has she died or something? I don't understand why it's so difficult to confirm an appointment.
No, I'm so sorry, Miranda. I actually did confirm last night.
Details of your incompetence do not interest me.
Hey.
I've always loved clothes and shoes. My Instagram handle is Shoe Queen something. And it's just the way that clothes can change the way you feel in your mood that really resonates with what I do on a day-to-day basis. You can put on a particular outfit and feel completely and utterly different to how you woke up in the morning because you've got this effectively suit of armor on. And so, what that film does for me is it captures the beauty and excitement of the fashion industry. And I think if I wasn't working in travel, I'd love to be working in fashion some way, shape or form. But how those clothes communicate identity and confidence and aspiration, and having that kind of suit of armor, even if you don't feel like doing something, you put on an amazing dress or a fantastic jacket and then you're ready to face the world.
For anyone who hasn't seen the film, you give a very, very brief synopsis of what happens in it?
Yeah, the film is essentially about she's portrayed as a bit of a tyrant actually, but a tyrannical magazine editor, Miranda Priestly, who is the editor of one of the biggest fashion magazines, or the
Runway magazine.
Runway magazine, exactly, biggest fashion magazine in the world. And it's about the rise of an intern who started with the magazine as a writer, who had her own ideas on what a journalist and a kind of features writer should be, but became something much more as becoming Miranda's assistant.
Can you actually remember when you went to see it? Did you go and see it at the cinema? Was it a DVD thing?
No, I remember going to see it at the cinema, and like I said, it came out in 2006, so it must have been 26 at the time. I went with some girlfriends. I was living near London at the time, and I had a job working in London. And there was so much kind of press around it. I remember there being so much press around this film coming out. It was Meryl Streep, it was Anne Hathaway, some big names within the film. And I also love Stanley Tucci as an actor as well. So I remember going to see it at the cinema. I really didn't know. It was kind of that time where lots of films, these kind of rom-coms are out, 27 Dresses, things like that. But actually it has like an underlying storyline that wasn't the normal rom-com side of things. So yeah, I can't remember the date or the exact month, but I remember going to see it in cinema in London with some friends.
Can you remember, as a 26-year-old at the time, what was the impact afterwards? You've watched this film, you said you went with no real great expectations that it was going to change your life or it was going to make you think further than what any other kind of rom-com film would do. Can you
I
can you
think
dig in a
just
little bit more about it?
you being drawn in by the clothes and the stylists, and how Patricia Field, who then at the time had I think shortly after did a collab with Marks and Spencers, because of how big that became and how big her styling became as the key stylist for the film, and just how transformative clothes can be to someone. She was this girl next door, a little bit dowdy, coming into this big magazine office in New York. And then all of a sudden she's in Chanel and Prada and all these amazing things that, she's standing up straighter and holding herself better in meetings. It was glamorous and funny at the same time.
The premise is that this intern, Andy, she's not anti-fashion, but she kind of thinks she's a little bit above fashion when she enters it. And that fashion is quite frivolous. And with the point that the film tries to make is that fashion's not shallow. It's a real industry. It's a real language. It's a form of power. As someone in marketing, how do you feel about that? Did you think of fashion as being quite frivolous to begin with, and you've changed your opinion over the years?
Initially, fashion's always been in my psyche. Now I'll take on a tiny bit of a journey to kind of get you to where I am. My mum is a biochemist, and at school I rebelled against the sciences. I did not want to go down the sciences route. I did languages for A level, geography. I did do maths, but I just wasn't going to be going down the chemistry, biology, physics route. But in my spare time, my mum makes clothes. So she's got a very left brain, right brain situation. And she used to make a lot of my clothes as I was growing up. And when I was younger, I used to hate it. I used to hate looking different to everyone else. I was like, why can't I just have the Reebok trainers everyone's got? Why can't I just wear the high-tech t-shirt or, whatever everyone else is wearing? And she'd make me wear, and I'm an only child, she'd make me wear other things. But I think fast forward then, kind of 10, 15 years, I really appreciate what she was trying to do for me, to be this person that stood out in a crowd, because why follow the herd when you can be your own person? So going back to then the film, I think some fashion is frivolous, and I think some fashion is absolutely, people spend a lot of money on things that are then basically throw away. But for me, fashion represents something else, and I'm not kind of that trend led. I will kind of buy into a few trends, but in my day to day, I think what it means is I have to step back. And in the travel industry, you kind of think you like what you like and you know what you know. But I love being at industry events that there are other verticals in the room, because it makes you think about other things and it makes you question things that you're doing. Are we doing things the right way? We need to test things a different way. And I think that's what Andy does in the film. She thinks she's above it and she thinks she knows it all, but actually you've got to kind of embrace it to then know, actually, that's not the case. We need to do it a different way.
Yeah, you've got to embrace it. It's an important part of most industries, really, isn't it? We have perceptions about most industries about, how easy they are, or how frivolous they are, or how this, or how that. The thing that we say at Storythings is every industry has a fascinating story to tell once you kind of get under the surface. And when we work with clients, we have to go for a period of, it's like learning a brand new language. You have to go for a period of learning a language, and then there's an aha moment, which is, okay, this is what is absolutely fascinating about this industry.
And I take my hat off to agencies like yours that do this, because you have to do it with so many different verticals. But to be able to understand, I think is very important that you don't navel gaze all the time. You can't just look at what's happening in your own site, but you have to be brave enough to say, actually, I don't know this. Let's go backwards a bit to then relearn what we thought we knew. And I say that to my teams all the time.
Can I just go back to the transformative power of fashion? Can you talk to me about, is there an item of clothing that you have, or an outfit, or a moment that you remember where clothes changed something else about what you were doing? Was it maybe an interview that you went to where you wore an item of clothing? When has fashion transformed something for you?
I mean, it's a very simple item of clothing, and I have several in my wardrobe. But I would say for me, you know, I've used fashion throughout my own life to express myself, express confidence, prepare for something important. And for me, it's always a blazer. Now I have got some plain blazers, but I've got some very kind of embellished blazers, and I will, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm on a panel, having an interview, even going to a black tie dinner and I want to wear something over a cocktail gown, I will wear a really nice jacket on top. And I think, an item becomes your kind of calling card, as it were. People know you for those things. The other things are shoes. I have over 200 pairs of shoes. And I think, even if you are, even if you've got the most plainest outfit on, a pair of shoes can transform, how you feel and how you look. And your feet never change size, so that's easy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in, trying to think about what that calling card can be sometimes, and being like a little bit strategic. I remember the very first time I worked with my partner at Storythings, Matt, he was just starting Storythings and we were doing some work for days, and he invited me in to talk as a speaker. And I just bought this really kind of quite bold jumper in LA, which a lot of people might have kind of gone, "Ooh, maybe that's a little bit too noisy for a first." Whereas my thinking was always go noisy at first, and then you can
And then
take
calm
yourself down
down.
a little bit. Make a bit of an impression to begin with.
Yeah.
And Matt kind of posted a picture of me on Instagram as I was getting ready and made some comment about my jumper, and I thought, okay, that's good. Okay, I've made an
Yeah.
impression on Matt. We ended up being partners. I don't know whether it was because of my jumper or my talk or whatever, but that's my thinking.
And you've just reiterated there exactly. Clothes shouldn't ever do the work for you, but they put you in the right mindset to be able to then talk or present whatever you're feeling like you're presenting. I've been in some pitches before where, as a client, you kind of you sit there and you are you're demure, you're listening, but the agency remembers you because you've got a nice jacket on, or you have a nice pair of shoes on, or they remember you as the person. And then when you're speaking, all of a sudden, you know what you're saying, and you've got every right to be sat at that table, but the clothes just help have that armor.
There's a great Taylor Swift quote somewhere where she's talking about writing and her approach to writing. And she says she writes some songs using a fountain pen because she wants the songs to feel like they've been written with a fountain pen. And she'll write some songs with a pen where the ink has glitter in it because she wants the songs to feel like they've been written like that. And that's kind of effectively what she's saying there, is what we're saying about clothes. The clothes change how you behave sometimes. They empower you to behave in a certain way, and they make you feel, like you're ready for something, or you're going to approach something in a completely different way, whether it's a fountain pen or whether it's a brightly colored top that you've just bought from LA.
When you get to this level and you're on a panel, or you're at a business lunch or something, and you're with everyone that is very similar to you, everyone's a CMO in the room, or there's a lot of C-suite guests within the room. Clothes are your brand almost. And that's why for me it is a nice jacket, and that kind of becomes your brand trademark. And that's Erin's trademark: nice pair of shoes, nice jacket. And where before, when I was between age 6 and 10, if I stood out and someone said, "Oh, I don't like that dress you're wearing, where'd you get that?" and I'd have to say, "Oh, my mum made it," or I don't know, because I was embarrassed by it. Now I'm like, "Oh yeah, this, my mum made it, and it's just fantastic." And I don't know, I quite like have people stopping me and asking me where did I get something, because I do that to people. If I see something someone likes, if they're on the tube or if I'm passing them on the street, I'm happy to give a compliment to say, you look fantastic. Where is that from?
The film doesn't exactly paint the nicest image of the fashion industry, or in particular the magazine itself. Yet Miranda kind of feels like 20 years later, Miranda's still survived almost as the hero, whereas Andy, I don't know, I might be wrong here, is kind of like forgotten about. Whereas like Andy was trying to make a moral decision in the film, wasn't she? Is she going to get dragged into this and behave like Miranda, who is quite cold and hard and whatever? How do you feel about that? Or have you not thought about it whatsoever?
I haven't really thought about it in that sense. So I'm kind of this is my general feelings on it now, I guess. You know, Andy does a really good job of sticking up for herself and, you know, what ultimately she believes in. But you're right in that the film still showcases Miranda as the heroine. And, you know, going to The Devil Wears Prada 2, she's absolutely still the heroine within that film until two of them try and bring her down and then ultimately feel sorry for her. So
Right.
it's a strange one, you know, and that is, you know, 20 years later that's come out. And that's happened, but she's still this, you know, force of nature at the start of the second film, just as she ended the first film as being this force of nature. But what I like is that Andy was happy in her decisions within that film. And, you know, she got what she needed to get out of doing that intern role, but she ultimately was true to herself and what she wanted to do.
Yeah, she was never going to change the industry, but
No.
she kind of
No.
left feeling that she'd made the right decisions for herself.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably grown with it as well, you know, and had some decisions, you know, had some decisions made for her that she probably didn't like, but Will, you know, took her on to better things. So she had both sides of the fence and she was able to argue both because she didn't have one before.
Yeah. And I suppose, you know, culturally, the world hasn't moved on in 20 years because Anna Wintour was still kind of running Vogue up until recently, and that's pretty much how she runs Vogue. And a lot of the decisions, a lot of her behaviors are perceived as being cruel, and some of them probably are, but a lot of them was just about time and efficiency and things like that. You know, Anna Wintour doesn't have sit-down meetings. People stand when they go into the room because she hasn't got time for people to sit down and those kind of things. You know.
Yeah.
What's the line? That's it, or that's all. Like she says in every meeting that she has.
Yeah.
That's all.
I
In other words,
remember thinking as a 26-year-old, I never want to be a boss where I sling my coat onto someone's desk to hang it up for me. You know, that's not the kind of leader I would like to be. And, you know, that's not the leader I am now. So, yeah.
what do you say if someone's late with your coffee?
Nothing,
Nothing.
because I know that I you know, my team know that I trust them implicitly, and you know, if they're late, then they'll make up the time elsewhere.
If you met Miranda, or if you met the writer of Devil Wears Prada, would you have any questions for them?
I'd like to know whether the creators expected people to become more sympathetic towards Miranda over time, or whether they wanted her to have this fearsome kind of character that people really disliked. That would be interesting to know if that was something from the off. Yeah, and whether they also felt that Miranda would eventually become this figure in culture that's enduring and complicated.
Yeah. Are there any quotes or favorite scenes? You know, are there any memes that you particularly use again and again, or?
Not Miranda based. I love the makeover scene for Andy when she's being styled. And, obviously that's Stanley Tucci's character. And I just think, that just shows what we've been talking about and how, the power of clothes can just change someone's demeanor. And she stood up straighter and her eyes felt brighter. And, obviously it's a film and it's supposed to do that. But, that really is what clothes can do for you if you feel comfortable and confident in them.
Yeah, it's an argument that I lose with my wife all the time. Well, I don't bother arguing with her anymore about it because she's a stylist, and there are times when I've turned around to her in the past and said, "Clothes aren't important in this moment," and she said, "Yes, they are." And I've realised actually, yeah,
She's right.
she's
I think
absolutely right.
outside of the writer, though, I'd like to ask Patricia Field how she chose clothes that looked beautiful versus kind of clothes which told us something specific about the character.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting to me because, certain designer can do all sorts of different things and there are some beautiful pieces, but, choosing clothes for the character is just as important.
Erin, thank you so much for your time. I've absolutely loved talking to you about Devil Wears Prada. If anyone wants to find you, where can they find you? You said you're on Instagram or TikTok.
I'm on Instagram. My handle is shoequeen79. So please come look me up. Obviously, on LinkedIn, Erin Johnson. But yeah, I'd love to have conversations with like-minded marketeers and, really enjoy conversations outside our vertical because ultimately, we are all doing things for customers in our various lives and, customer first is my mindset. So yeah.
Fabulous. Speaking of customer first, if this is the first time you're listening to Creative Crush, like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're here every 2 weeks and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.